atmosphere to actually ensure that you keep food on the table. Then guess what? You get back home and the man is beating you up. Gender-based violence, that's what we want to talk about. You go to the firm, yes, you till the land, and then at the end of the day, the man is selling all the proceeds from the firm. That is gender-based violence. It is actually affecting you psychologically. That's what we want to talk about right here on Morning at NTV. 500,500 plus teenagers have been impregnated since March of 2020. Those cases can all translate into gender-based violence. That's what we are talking about right here. 17,000 young teenagers have been forced into early marriages. All that can translate into gender-based violence. When you actually write a very, very, very rude message on the internet levied towards a female, yes, that is also considered online harassment. It's also considered sexual gender-based violence. So it can take so many forms, and that's why we are here to interrogate this very, very pertinent conversation right here on Morning at NTV. We do have the Secretary in charge of Female Affairs at the National Youth Council. That is none other than Brenda Chichonchu, and she's here to indulge me with the latest as to why we are seeing an uptick or burgeoning cases owed to gender-based violence. Very good morning, Brenda.
Good morning.
Indeed. Nice to have you on this platform this beautiful Tuesday. Give us a situation analysis of how gender-based violence cases have been rising in this country.
Thank you, moderator and the listeners and those watching us. Gender-based violence has been happening and has been in the country for many years. But since lockdown, the past 2 years, it has become more worse.
I see.
According to the report of 2016, we saw gender-based violence was at 25%. But ever since lockdown,
5 years later.
5 years later, now we are at 50%.
Wow.
Reason being, we are in a community where the abusers stay with the victims, and there is no chance of going to report to police. And because of the curfew restrictions, many people fear to move to go and report, because we see these cases happen at night.
Okay.
And
when the viewer hears that some of these people stay with the victims, the viewer is wondering, are they doing it willfully? What happens in this event? Are they being coerced to stay within these settings? Are they being forced not to go away? Like, what happens in that event?
Like when I say victims stay with the abusers, we are seeing community. There is a lot of inter-community interaction because of lockdown. Schools are closed, students are home, and many people within the community, people are not working, they stay home, and you find a neighbor, let me say, like you're my neighbor, you harass my child. I come and complain, but there is no action being taken.
I see.
And you fear maybe if I talk about it, that person will meet me and harass me. I see. I have no phone call to call and call for help. And you see, we are within the same community. How will I report my neighbor? Or what will be the outcome of this?
I see.
Because after all, these abusers are well off. You report him, he goes to police, the next day is given bail. So
this person can attack you upon getting bail.
Yes, they attack you. And because of fear, many people fear to repeat these cases. So abusers and the victims are all in the same place. They have an option, but they say we have nothing to do. And
we've also had reports that some of the victims are living with the abusers, not in the same community, but in the same house.
Yeah, in the same house.
The father is the abuser, the uncle is the abuser, the cousin is the abuser. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, we have many cases, like you'll see under this home of remnant teenage mothers, remnant generations. We have seen cases recently. Before cases would come, because like we have said, neighbors, community, but of recent, many cases are through incest. You have cases where a dad, a grandfather, grandchild is sleeping with auntie. Those cases, like within the family, and you see how difficult it is.
It was more like a movie, like something written in a book or something, like you don't really believe it's happening right now.
Yeah, you don't believe it's happening. So many cases are incest, and you find it hard to leave your home or leave home at night to go and report your dad to a police who has sexually harassed you, who has beaten you, and that has
because increased. This person is the breadwinner.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
Actually paying your food, your meals. I see.
You don't know when schools are opening to go back to school. Maybe you share with your teachers or the wardens. And it becomes so hard.
So the school setting was the safest haven for our children, especially the girls.
Exactly, especially to the girl child, because we see through this, numbers have raised. teenage pregnancies. A lot has been happening, and through gender-based violence, and because of the COVID-19. We know gender-based violence, it's a pandemic itself.
It's a pandemic itself.
And we have to fight this pandemic. We have to come up, all of us, we come all together, men, women, boys, all of us. It's our fight. Let's fight the pandemic. As we are fighting the energy we're using to fight COVID, let it be the same energy we are using to fight gender-based violence.
But do you think the government has accorded the same energy it has accorded COVID-19 when you see what they are doing on the ground as a result of fighting or combating GBV? Do you feel like they've put in enough energy to combat this problem?
Yes, government has put in enough energy. That's why you see we are having governments joining the civil society, not leaving it to the civil society or to us, the young people. Government has come to us because we see last Saturday, the Ministry of Gender was launching the 16 days, because we are now in the 16 days of activism,
up to December,
which is global. And the minister launched it, showing like she's ready in a fight and is ready to work with all of us from the grassroots through our structures.
Before she could launch that event, yes, on November 25th, yes, the statistics we were getting on Morning at 10 TV indicated that over 500,000 plus of our young people actually got pregnant. We are talking about 395,000 in 2020 alone. We're talking about 196,000 as of January all the way to June or July this year. If you were to tally July, August, September, October, meaning that number has risen exponentially all the way to 600,000 teenage pregnancies. Would you say that that is a government that has put in enough, resources, enough energy, enough prioritization to fight GBV with all these cases? Because 600,000 cases of teenage pregnancies can actually translate into cases of gender-based violence. These young children were forced to have sex.
Yeah, like I said, it's not only government's side, it's everyone's responsibility. We people in the community, we people in our homes, parents, how are we talking to our children?
Sexuality education.
Yes, how are you talking to your neighbor's child? Can we have a responsible community? Can we take it to a grassroots level? That's why we go to the grassroots level, and the minister was in Oyam talking to people, not launching it here in Kampala on televisions, and it stops there. We are doing through our structures from ground level, through Women Council, Youth Council. We are using all those structures to come up with a measure. And as like I said, gender-based violence is a pandemic. It was there before, and here we see the last 2 years, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has risen. And how are we going?
Indeed. Let's speak to the needs of the victims. Brenda Chichoncho, you've been on the ground, courtesy of the National Youth Council. You've been moving with government leaders on the ground to ensure that you reach out to the victims at the grassroots. Would like to know, on Morning at 10 TV, what are the needs of the victims now more than ever? When you talk to them, what are their needs when they speak to you?
The first need of the victims and even the parents, they need schools opened.
I see. Because
we see the circle, it's always triangle. We say a parent, a child, and a teacher.
Indeed.
Where we all have counseling in that angle. A parent, the teacher comes in, and you find it's like a bond between a teacher, parent, and a child. But because of lockdown, it has made it worse. Parents need schools opened, and most girls also need to go back to school because they feel harassed in communities. They are growing old, as a lady you have to have breast and these men are harassing them, and men harassing them are financial, okay? Girls cannot deny, because they are in need to also provide for themselves. Their mind is at rest, they are too active, they have nothing to do. At times, so when you're at school, your mind is diverted by
focus on education.
Yeah, focus on education. So many people and parents and the activists, all of them want schools open.
What else are they clamoring for, Brenda?
What they're coming for is the government to put a budget, gender allocation. We need budget allocation increased, because when you see gender-based violence was allocated 0.02%, which is not enough, and yet we see there is a pandemic within a pandemic.
And that's why this platform is actually being truthful and saying unequivocally without fear or favor that government has done nothing in this respect to clamp down on the cases of teenage pregnancies and also the gendered, yes, domestic violence acts that have taken center stage during this COVID-19 pandemic. We do not want to just criticize the government, but for them to wake up from this state of deep slumber and come out with measures that will go a long way in helping them dampen the resolve of the perpetrators to actually go ahead and violate the victims. Brenda Chichonche, please go ahead with your submission.
Yeah, so the budget allocation, budget should be increased. And also, we need the government to have a national gender-based violence home. We saw recently...
A shelter for the victims.
Exactly, but which is national. Because we have shelters, but they are for civil societies.
NGOs, yes.
Not like a national. We have one in Kamuli, which was recently with Assistant IG person Kasinje and Commissioner for Gender and Children, Madam Angela. It was launched in Kamuli, but it's under Uganda Women's Network. It's not a national, like under Minister of Gender, or it's managed by a government.
So what we need is a national shelter, safe haven for our victims.
Exactly. That's what we need as a country. And also call upon the legislator to pass that sexual offense bill. Because we see this one is direct. It targets directly the abusers.
Indeed.
And when this one is passed, it will help us reduce the cases. Because now we don't have a law which punishes these abusers. That's why they are, all over they abuse this one, because they know we go to police, you're given bail. So when we have that law, it also helps. And also
if I go to the local chiefs, the local tribunals, I'll simply pay some little money and they'll let me go scot-free. If I'm willing to pay bride price, they can let me go scot-free with this lady. So we shall also talk about access to justice for these victims. Go ahead.
Exactly. Then we also have we should also encourage all institutions to have policies, sexual harassment policies taught in these schools. Because the one we have is recently of Sylvia Tamari, of Dr. Sylvia Tamari of Makerere, and would encourage all the institutions in Uganda to have that policy. We let these girls and boys in schools what is supposed to be done.
The National Sexuality Education Framework?
Yeah. So we need to know when these policies are put in place, are they implemented or they are just kept?
They are never implemented.
So we need implementation of all these programs. Of these laws are in place, yes. How are we implementing them? How are we putting them into
Meaning
action?
Even though we passed the sexual offences bill, but then it's not implemented, it would have gone to waste.
Exactly. Because when we pass it, yes, but how are we implementing it? Are we keeping it or we are going to the grassroots? Because like you saw the last campaign of the president where he used the village from bottom-up approach, like village level to village level parish, like that. So we need to have that approach also from villages. Within our village, we have a village, we have homes, let me say 10 homes. Have you approached one home or another? What have you discussed? Let's take gender violence. Gender-based violence is in many ways. Not only sexually, but in many ways.
Not only what you can see tangibly or physically, but even in the spheres or the dark corners of the internet, sexual gender-based violence is happening. You do have online harassment that is taking center stage, and it got worse during the campaign period when we were telling everyone, please get onto the internet. You cannot hold campaigns, get onto the internet and speak to your voters. So it was the only channel through which the voters could speak to their leaders and the leaders could speak to their voters at some point. So the women were also subjected to this practice, and that's where they found hell, you know, meeting all these people who were harassing them on the internet left, right and center, heckling them, sending all these messages and so forth. So online harassment, how rife has it been during this COVID-19 pandemic? And is it also another form of GBV?
Yeah, it's also another form of GBV. And during this lockdown, it has gone worse because we have been seeing on social media, they are posting women naked because they are kids, and more especially many people were idle during lockdown. Both men and women were home. Instead, they are always on internet looking for those nude videos to make them say others cannot reach their spouse, they would do even sex online.
I see.
Again, and it ends going rival and everything goes bad. And this affects the image of a woman. Because we see, if we were to follow the events from 2020 last year and up to now, you see women are the ones who have been affected most in this through that online harassment. You see they post women speak, women moving, during jogging, and everything was directed women.
Even when women are working, let's say Romeo Busiku is, disseminating information on this platform morning at NTV, I'm going to be judged based on what I'm divulging to the viewer in that regard. They'll be like, oh, Romeo gave us some little bit of very, very good information like he usually does on the morning show. But if it were a lady, things change. Yeah. Oh, what is she wearing? Oh, she's too fat. No, she's too small, or she's too light-skinned. So those gendered, criticisms and also translating into sexual gender-based violence, that's what we are talking about, aren't we?
Yes, that's it. So gender-based violence is not only through sex. Many people think through sexual harassment.
It could be psychological.
Yeah, it is psychological torture, online harassment.
Economic violence. I will not give you Kameza money also today because you denied me sex last night, so you're going to stay hungry. Is this still taking center stage? We used to hear of these stories. Yeah,
that's also domestic violence. So let's all join hands. Let's fight a pandemic. The energy, I would like everyone, like the energy we used during COVID-19 to fight COVID-19, should be the same energy we put on gender-based violence.
Let's see where the National Youth Council has been investing its energy. You're the Secretary in charge of Female Affairs. What have you been doing to help us as a country or a nation to stamp out gender-based violence, or at least to reduce the burgeoning cases?
As a country, and as National Youth Council and the Women Council, we have been doing a lot of sensitization, grassroots sensitization.
Indeed.
We go into communities and we talk to people, more especially not only women and girls. You people always focus domestic violence on women and girls, but even men face domestic violence. And we are talking more especially to men and boys, because we know, Romeo, if I'm pregnant, meaning a man has pregnated me, not my fellow girl. So we are talking to these men because they are the abusers, to see how they can join us and fight gender-based violence. How can they, because men are looked at to be brave, aggressive, can men lead the battle of fighting gender-based violence?
Is unemployment adding fuel to this fire? The fact that so many of our young boys were idle during this COVID-19 pandemic, they had too much time on their hands to engage in these sexual shenanigans, and wouldn't we be in a better position putting in place economic initiatives that would go a long way in keeping them busy to avoid this problem? Unemployment
has been one of the causes, because we see people even in a community idle. The boys have started smoking marijuana, and we're under alcohol. We find people drinking alcohol. Even
14 billion cigarettes are smoked every day.
Yes, alcohol. Although we're in lockdown, bars are closed, but people are drinking in their homes because they are stressed. They have nowhere to go. They drink like from morning to evening because they are idle. They have nothing to do. Under influence, like we're in a community, that's why I said it should be on a community level, because all decisions start from the community. We are in lockdown. Can we come and play matatu? So from there you start judging what you say, girl person, can we approach that lady? So
in northern Uganda it is different. They'll go drink and everything, get intoxicated, then they'll see a girl. Whoever can run faster or sprint and get to this young girl will take her.
Will take her.
Or
you see that,
defile her.
And that,
you understand what I mean?
Because of idleness.
So that's what is happening in northern Uganda. Very close.
Through the parish mode, we have seen many government programs, yoga, and we have the parish mode where the youth have 30% and the women 30%. We are encouraging young people to get involved in this parish model, because we are at the parish level now, not to first go through the process, district, sub-county, parish. We are now at parish model, and we encourage young people, and more especially young girls, because government has no jobs to give these young people, but we request young people to go through this parish model. Let's use our hands to earn.
You and I, Brenda Chichoncho, know that access to this money is the main problem. It is never about these young people refusing to join these development initiatives or to actually get some little bit of money, but access to these funds. We are talking about a simple thing as a national ID. how many of these young people in this country have a national ID? That is the $64,000 question. Now, if we solve that answer, and then we find out that majority do not have the national IDs, it means majority do not have access to this money. What can we do as a government? Shouldn't we remove these requirements and make it so easy? Meaning, if I do have my LC1 card or ID, I can access this money, Yoga, National Youth Livelihood Fund, and get some semblance of peace in my life.
Like, you see, we have the Youth Capital Venture Fund.
I see.
That Youth Capital Venture Fund, you don't need any security. And many young people have benefited through it.
Even a national ID?
Without an, of course, it has been there even before the introduction of the national IDs. You go and get, just need your chairman to confirm that you're from that village. Because we need to show that you're a youth and you're from that village. And they give you money without any security. Through Capital Venture Fund, it's in the Centenary Bank. And now we have the parish model. For the parish model, it's a group thing. You come as a group on your parish. That's why it has gone to parish, not to go to banks or where. It's coming directly to you on your parish, because you know people within your parish, you know how many villages are within your parish, and you work together. Not that you're going to, that's why it's not an individual thing, it's a group thing. So as a group of young people, if I say, can we sell Irish, like for us from Kabale, I say, can we start a group, we sell Irish, can we transport Irish to Juba?
I see.
Can we transport Irish to Kampala and we sell? We are getting profits of 150. How are we sharing it? This case has busy, everyone is in the field. Let me go here and I look for a garden which has Irish. That one keeps you busy. And I encourage
you know, you mentioned Kawale. Kawale has some 15,000 teenage pregnancies. That is as of 2020 and January of 2021. That is another jurisdiction where I did the People's Parliament. And I could tell you verifiably, many teenagers were actually falling prey to this scourge. Gender-based violence was increasing left, right, and center. And even the leaders were saying they had nothing to do in that regard. But then here's another group that has nothing to do, the PWDs. On 3rd December, they are going to be observing the International Day of People Living with Disabilities. And I'm telling you right now, they were the biggest, you know, chunk of people who suffered or bore the brunt of this COVID-19 pandemic lockdown measures as far as GBV is concerned. Talk to us about that, the plight of the PWDs.
The PWDs, like I said, the abusers and the victims are within a community. Like access to these centers of gender-based violence and access to the police station or to report these people, it limits them. Because we have a curfew restrictions where by 7 p.m. you have to be home. You have been harassed at 8. Remember, you have no means to take you to the police to report, or you have no phone to call. So that's why we are coming up, we are engaging many civil societies and the government to put a national gender-based. When I'm harassed today, I know tomorrow I'm going to maybe Nagulo, and maybe give Nagulo as an example, where there is a national gender-based home where I can be and I give my ideas and I'm contained there, because if I live there and I go back, who knows, I don't have one leg, they're going to take the second one. Indeed, of course, the PWDs, that's how dirty it got. You couldn't run away from your perpetrator, you couldn't see the perpetrator, you couldn't speak to the police to actually pinpoint that this is the perpetrator. That's how dire it got for the PWDs. Yeah, that's why I come to that issue of having a national gender-based home. And the minister, when she was launching the 16 days, because we are now in the 16 days of actives until 10th December. Orange the world. Yeah, she promised to work on that, and she's going to bring that idea, and we see how we can help our people, most especially the PWDs who are victims and who have no help, at least for like me or you, when you're harassed, you have a chance to stand and go fight. Or at least to run away in the event that you run away, but the PW cannot. So that's our gospel of having a national and increasing the gender-based budget so that we know we have this. How are we sustaining these people? The good news is that the PWDs are getting at least a 10% in the parish development model. That is the good news. They're also getting some is it 30% in the NSSF midterm access out of the way, where we were allowing people to access their money at the age of 45 and have been saving for the last 10 years. For the PWDs, you only have to be 40, and that percentage actually goes up beyond 20% for you, the PWDs. What else needs to be done to help PWDs access justice during this time when grappling? Yeah, like we have toll-free numbers where they have to call. However much you find some people have no phones to call or have no airtime. Because when you say everyone complaining this pandemic, even I be there, I have no airtime. I have no
Sometimes
data.
the perpetrator is the only one with their phone.
It's done with the phone. And how are you going to say, help me with your phone, I report you? That can't happen.
Isn't that the scenario where we might need social workers?
We have enough safe spaces for people living with disability, for the young girls, so that there's a safe space where I'm free to go and report. I'm free. We have nearby targets. We have 70,000 villages.
Indeed.
Where we say like maybe at least we know each village has like a police station. On each police station, can we have a desk handling gender-based violence? Can we have that free space and free access, free interaction, so that, because many people fear police.
Of course, that safe space, my dear Chichonche, would only work if this victim has the ability to move from this home where the perpetrator is abusing them all the way to the safe space. But we are talking about PWDs who have mobility challenges. I cannot walk or move. Can we tout the significance of social workers maybe moving among members of the community and trying to knock on every door?
Yes,
and asking, how are you? Is there any problem? Is there something we can help you with? You can even put up signals to send an SOS that, you know what, there's a problem here, please come back with the police force. But then when we tell them, come, we assume that they can all move to these safe spaces or even the police stations where they can get help.
Of course, like I told you, many people fear police. That's why most cases are not reported. Yet even we have at least every village or every community has a police post. But they fear to go there. But now, what we are talking of, we are having civil society organizations, even us through our structures. Let me tell you, I may fear to go to police, but I can interact with a stranger I've seen who has asked me about the situation. Said, you know, here in our community, every night we hear night dancers. You know, but when you fear, tell your neighbor that, what if your neighbor is the night dancer? I see. Yeah, so these civil societies, in collaboration with the National Women Council, we have a household approach. Women Council has a national household approach strategy. I
like that.
Yes. So we get, like we talk to our chairpersons every district and villages. We always have every month, they move around to get us a report.
I see.
But we are targeting on women's living. We have women, let me say, in Kasokosoko. How are they living? Are they just home seated waiting for men to feed them?
Indeed.
Or are they home doing something? So through that interaction, it's where we get those problems. You know, we can sit and say, maybe this community, I give an example of maybe, let's say, Soga with 12 districts. We say we have a challenge where we have to put our focus in the next quarter. When we say Luhuka or Bugweli has many cases, has brought up the report, they have brought up many issues. We have talked to those leaders. What should we do? What next? Can we go and sample them in the, even we always have village courts where there has a wife reports husband, this one did this to me, this one did this to me, and we come together, we talk, and we show them they have to be together and fight.
Let's talk about those village courts and also the formal justice system. Access to justice for these victims of gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, violence against women and girls, and also violence against children. Let's talk about the access to justice for them. In the informal, there is a customary informal justice system and also the formal justice system. In the informal justice system, you do have the local tribunals. The chiefs will sit around and say, okay, you've been defiled by person X. All right, can he pay a few goats? How many? 10, 20? Yes. Please go away scot-free. So this individual will know, okay, all I have to do is have the money, continue with these heinous activities, and I'll be let go scot-free. How dire or terrible are these local jurisdictions in handling access to justice for the victim?
To me, I find the local courts, these village courts, much better. So far,
you find them much better?
Yeah, I've attended like 3 of them because you're there, the victim and the abuser, all of them are there. You're getting it, it's the direct. You're getting it from the victim and the abuser. What made him do this? Or why were you tempted to do this? And you, from there and then you find a solution. If you're to forgive each other, you forgive. But already all the village knows this one rapes women, does what. So you already know the person, and if to you, man, you say, eh, now people know me, let me start behaving well in a community.
Do these local tribunals translate into prosecutions at some stage? As in, we say, okay, this person is the rapist everyone should know about, or the defiler. Is that where it stops? Is this person prosecuted
of course, after
in the courts of law?
They give you a punishment. Like,
what kind?
I was in Kayunga last time with those abusers. We had like 3, so the community had to decide what to do for them. So they were like, maybe you have to come and they give you a punishment. You have to dig here, or you have to clean these offices like for a month, and you
defile or rape someone and you end up with community service. Is that a deterrent enough
community service,
to stop you from doing it again?
Because community now says when we take these people to police or to court, they are given something, they give something, and they are released on bail.
So the weaknesses of the local courts are translated into the weaknesses of the formal justice system, corruption at the police stations and the courts of law.
Exactly, and that's why we are advocating for the sexual offense bill.
I see.
We know there is no bail on an abuser. He has to be punished.
180 days before issuance of bail or bond.
Yeah, exactly. Not the things of of raping or harassing, killing people, and they say you have to go free, you have your money.
Even community service, this person will just know, okay, I'm just going to dig. I might even hire a few people
but in the community,
when there are no prying eyes.
They give you that service, but then still there is an impact. There's how it affects, because even your family has known, how will my kids see me as this, as this. You end up apologizing. At least you know you have bought a bond between the victim and the abuser, because you have.
But would that apology stop the next perpetrator from violating the next victim?
Another one will serve as an example, because I cannot see my husband. Let me say, if I'm married and I see my husband being punished for doing that, I will feel hurt. And within yourself, if you're a neighbor, like when you're another lady, you'll say, I don't want my husband to go through that. Even husband will say, I don't want to see my wife going through that pain and and you know, psychological torture is a disease which people ignore, but it's a very dangerous disease.
Besides corruption and away from the informal justice system, what is wrong with the formal justice system, our courts of law and the police?
The problem we have with our formal, yes, it's good, but that thing of giving bail, it's not being fair to the victims. I see. And the victims being young girls and being vulnerable, we have no access to courts, to good lawyers who are going to defend us in those courts. We end up being tortured psychologically, and you find when you have even left the case, you don't follow up, because when you go, they ask you, bring your lawyer, where the short is. You find even in the people who are there to defend you are fearing, because they have been.
Like the Baganda say, a broke person will never win a court case.
Exactly, like they say.
Indeed, they do. Go ahead, Brenda.
So a broke person cannot win a case. That's the mentality.
Justice has been monetized.
To reality, that's true. So we need to find a way, when that bill is passed, which is very strict and will help us to fight this injustice and to fight this pandemic in our country and the whole world.
Ahead of World AIDS Day, what is your message to the youth out there? We've noticed a skyrocketing resurgence of HIV, because if we are talking about 500,000 of our young teenagers being impregnated, chances are there was HIV actually being passed on to these victims. Ahead of World AIDS Day, what message do you have for our young people?
We all know 1st December, it's always international World, it's a World AIDS Day. And to young people out there, my message is be safe. We see cases have increased in this lockdown in fact, from last year up to now, cases. And let me tell you, we have now 600,000 teenage pregnancies. I'm sure half of those teenage pregnancies we have victims of HIV/AIDS.
Indeed.
And this increases the number. But what we should know, young people, many people think AIDS is through sex, and which is no. Not only AIDS is through sex. You may have an accident. blood connects, you never know the person you're seated next to or the person near you. Or you go for, let me say, surgery, or what you don't know what has been used on you. So it's to keep safe.
Using unsterilized objects?
Yes, you have to keep safe and protect your neighbor or your partner, those who are married, those who are not. Let's keep safe, because when you're interacting, I used to interact with many people at school, even up to now. Our generation and young girls, do you know nowadays they don't fear AIDS. A girl fears getting pregnant.
Indeed.
He said, "And if I get pregnant, what will I do at home?" But you ask, you're fearing to get pregnant instead of fearing to get HIV/AIDS.
And indeed, Brenda Chichonjo, what do we have to do to end the high teenage pregnancies in this country, and how do they contribute to gender-based violence?
Teenage pregnancies, like you said, they have been on rise this pandemic, and even before teenage pregnancies have not been there. Let's not use COVID as an excuse, though it has made it more worse because we have perpetrators. They are already in their homes, in their villages. So what we should do, let's sensitize the young people, let's sensitize the community, let's sensitize everyone in the village and the parish so that we can fight this. And I call upon men and boys to come up and preach the gospel more.
We need men on board.
We need men on board. We leave the boy child aside, we focus on girl child. Yet a boy child needs a girl child and a girl child needs a boy child. And when a boy child is sensitized and men, it will help us to fight these teenage pregnancy. Because girls are not, like I told you, you cannot pregnant yourself. You're pregnanted by a man. But if a man knows that, no, it's not right for me to pregnant a girl who is below 18 years, or it's not right for me to sleep with a girl who is below 18 years.
Brenda Chichonjo, the Secretary, Female Affairs, yes, under the National Youth Council. Thank you very much for having made the time to speak to us right here. Now that we are dealing with the skyrocketing or burgeoning number of teenage pregnancies within the country, over 600,000 teenage pregnancies have been registered and over 17,000 have been subjected to early marriages. Thank you very much for having made the time to speak to us.